Ladies and gentlemen, when we find ourselves hurt by another person, the pain can be overwhelming, cutting deep into the very fabric of who we are. We may wish for time to erase it, for the wound to disappear, for the memory to fade as if it were never there. But in truth, it is not the passing of time that heals the wound. It is the understanding of that wound, the embrace of it, and the transformation of our inner world. The first step, understanding the pain as part of the whole self. The first and perhaps the most difficult step in overcoming the hurt is to acknowledge that the pain you feel is not simply a product of someone else's actions. It is also a reflection of your own inner landscape. When we are hurt, it is a call to examine ourselves, to look inward and ask, what about this experience triggered such a profound response? The hurt we feel may touch on past wounds, old fears, or deep-seated vulnerabilities. Rather than merely blaming the other person, we must take responsibility for how we respond to the pain. This pain reveals parts of our unconscious selves, the hidden or forgotten aspects of who we are, the shadow we've long tried to avoid. To forget someone who has hurt us, we must first integrate the pain into our own understanding of who we are. We cannot run from it, we must look it in the eye, embrace it, and allow it to reveal the deeper truths about ourselves. The second step, releasing the grip of the past. Many of us make the mistake of thinking that holding onto the hurt somehow keeps us connected to the past, that by keeping the memory alive we preserve some semblance of justice. But in reality, this act of holding onto the pain keeps us locked in the past. The hurt becomes a chain that binds us to a moment that no longer exists, a moment that we cannot change. Letting go is not about forgetting. It is about releasing the grip the past has over us. It is about freeing ourselves from the illusion that we can control what has already happened. The act of forgiveness in this sense is not an act of absolution for the other person. It is an act of self-liberation. Forgiving is not about letting them off the hook. It is about letting ourselves go, about freeing ourselves from the heavy burden of resentment and anger that only weigh us down. When we let go, we make space for healing, and in that space we become free to choose our future rather than remain imprisoned by our past. The third step, embracing the journey of self-discovery and growth. Finally, as painful as it may seem, every encounter with suffering holds the potential for transformation. The hurt, the betrayal, the sorrow, it can become the very soil from which new growth emerges. But only if we are willing to look within, to ask ourselves, what can I learn from this? The pain we experience is not a mark of weakness, but a challenge to become whole. It is an invitation to embark on a journey of self-discovery, to explore the hidden corners of our psyche and to ask why we allowed ourselves to be hurt, what we fail to see or what we neglect in our own soul. Through this introspection, we transcend the role of the victim. We see the hurt not as something that was done to us, but as a doorway that opens to our own personal growth. We transform the wounds into wisdom, and from that wisdom we find strength. What once threatened to break us can in the end become the foundation upon which we build a more resilient, self-aware, and integrated self. When we experience emotional pain, particularly when someone has hurt us, the natural instinct is often to blame the other person entirely. We look at their actions, their words, and their behavior as the root cause of our suffering. It's only natural to seek an external explanation for why we feel the way we do. It's easier to point at someone else and say, they did this to me, and that's why I feel this way. But the truth, or perhaps more uncomfortable, is that the pain we feel is not merely a result of what someone else has done to us. It is, in fact, an invitation to explore deeper layers of ourselves, an opportunity to look inward and confront parts of our own being that we may have neglected, repressed, or avoided. Understanding the pain as part of the whole self is not about denying the hurt inflicted by others, but about recognizing that our response to it is just as significant. The first step in this process is realizing that the emotional pain we experience is not an isolated event. It is a reflection of the complex emotional and psychological web that makes up our inner world. Pain, particularly the kind caused by others, can trigger deep emotional responses that often go beyond the immediate situation. It may tap into past wounds, childhood traumas, or unaddressed feelings that have been simmering beneath the surface. For example, a comment made by a friend or a betrayal by a loved one might feel more intense than it logically should because it resonates with an earlier experience where we felt rejected, abandoned, or unheard. The intensity of the emotion may seem disproportionate to the event, but it is crucial to understand that our emotional response is shaped by the whole of our past experiences. We must begin by looking at the experience of pain as an opportunity to understand the unconscious parts of ourselves. Carl Jung, although we do not mention him here, spoke extensively about the shadow, the hidden or repressed aspects of ourselves that we either deny or fail to acknowledge. These aspects are often uncomfortable, painful, or deemed unacceptable by society or ourselves. When we experience emotional pain, especially from someone close to us, it is an opportunity to examine whether this pain is truly about the other person, or if it's also a manifestation of unresolved issues within our own psyche. The feelings of hurt, betrayal, and anger are often clues pointing us toward unresolved emotional wounds that we need to address. The reason this self-awareness is so important is because emotional pain tends to bring to the surface parts of ourselves that we might have avoided. It is not simply the person who has hurt us that we need to understand. It is our own emotional reactions, the triggers, the patterns, and the deeper feelings that surface as a result. By acknowledging that our response to pain is a reflection of who we are, we can begin to see that the other person's actions are often a mirror that reflects the unhealed parts of ourselves. We are not victims of circumstances, but active participants in how we respond to the world. Pain then becomes a mirror to our inner world, revealing aspects of ourselves that we may not have fully understood or acknowledged before. This process of self-reflection requires courage. It requires us to go beyond the surface-level interpretation of events and to dig deeper into our own emotional landscape. For instance, when someone betrays us, it is easy to see the betrayal as an isolated event, as a wrong done to us by someone who failed us. However, when we look at the feelings that arise in response to the betrayal, anger, sadness, fear, perhaps even shame, we begin to see that these emotions are not only about the betrayal itself, they are also about our previous experiences with trust, vulnerability, and emotional safety. Maybe in the past we've been let down by others, or maybe we've been taught that trust is a fragile thing, easily broken. When this betrayal happens, it's not just the present event we are reacting to. We are reacting to the sum total of our past experiences with similar emotions. Recognizing that our pain is not just about the other person allows us to begin the process of healing. We can start by asking ourselves questions like, what does this pain reveal about me? What is this experience teaching me about my own vulnerabilities, my needs, and my boundaries? Instead of seeing the betrayal or the hurt as a mere external event, we can begin to see it as an opportunity for self-discovery. It forces us to confront our emotional landscape, and in doing so, it pushes us toward greater self-awareness. This introspection is not about self-blame or feeling guilty for our emotional reactions. It is simply about understanding that our responses are a natural part of our psychological makeup. Our emotions are signals. They are not random, but rather reflections of our deeper, sometimes unconscious, psychological processes. When we feel hurt, our emotional pain often stems from unmet needs or unresolved inner conflict. It may stem from a fear of abandonment, a need for validation, or a longing for unconditional love. By acknowledging these feelings, we can start to uncover what truly lies beneath them. Understanding the pain as part of the whole self also means accepting that all parts of ourselves, our light and our dark sides, are worthy of attention and care. Our emotional reactions, even the ones that seem irrational or exaggerated, are valid parts of who we are. Often we have been taught to dismiss or ignore painful emotions, viewing them as weaknesses or flaws. Yet these emotions are important signals that point to areas of our lives that need healing or growth. Rather than denying or rejecting them, we must learn to accept them as part of our human experience. In this way, the hurt we experience from others becomes a pathway to greater self-acceptance and self-love. This process of self-understanding requires patience. It is easy to fall into the trap of self-judgment when we experience pain. We may tell ourselves that we are too sensitive or that we should just get over it. But healing is not a linear process. It is complex and multifaceted. It requires that we sit with our emotions, not try to rush past them. The journey toward healing begins with self-compassion, the ability to acknowledge our pain without judgment, and to see it as part of our greater journey of growth. When we allow ourselves to feel our emotions fully, without resistance, we open the door to understanding their deeper meaning. And it is through this understanding that we begin to heal. The concept of emotional pain as part of the whole self also invites us to question our attachment to the past. When someone hurts us, we often find ourselves trapped in a cycle of rumination, replaying the event over and over again in our minds, asking ourselves, why did they do this? What did I do wrong? This cycle can keep us bound to the past, preventing us from moving forward. By understanding that the pain we feel is not only about the other person's actions, but also about our own emotional needs and patterns, we begin to release the grip of the past. We stop seeing ourselves as passive victims of others and start to recognize our role in how we experience and react to the world. Ultimately, understanding the pain as part of the whole self is about moving toward greater emotional maturity. It is about recognizing that our pain is not separate from us, but a part of us, one that needs to be understood, processed, and integrated into our lives. When we can do this, we cease to see ourselves as defined by the hurts we have experienced. Instead, we see them as opportunities for growth, as moments that can propel us toward a deeper understanding of who we are. The pain we experience in life becomes not something to fear or avoid, but a teacher that leads us towards healing and transformation. In this way, the pain we feel from others can ultimately become a gateway to greater self-awareness, compassion, and personal growth. It shows us the hidden parts of ourselves that we may have been avoiding, and through that exploration, we come to realize that the journey of healing is not just about the other person's actions, but about the way we choose to respond to the world. When we stop looking outside ourselves for the answers, when we begin to see our pain as part of our own story, we reclaim our power. We are no longer at the mercy of others' actions. We are the authors of our own healing. This expanded reflection on the first key point encourages a deep introspective view on how emotional pain can serve as a tool for self-understanding and healing. It aims to help us see pain not as something inflicted externally, but as part of our inner journey toward wholeness. Letting go of the past is often one of the most difficult aspects of healing from emotional pain. When someone hurts us, it is not simply an isolated event. It is something that can affect us deeply and linger in our minds long after the initial incident has passed. We replay the scenario in our heads, seeking answers, making sense of what happened, and asking ourselves how or why it occurred. In many cases, the emotional pain from this experience becomes a part of us, something we carry around with us long after the person has left our lives. Letting go of this pain, of the hurt that has been inflicted upon us, is not about forgetting or erasing it from our memory. Rather, it is about releasing its grip on us, freeing ourselves from the emotional chains that keep us tethered to the past, and allowing ourselves to move forward. The act of holding on to pain can be seen as a form of unconscious attachment. It is not that we consciously choose to hold on to the hurt, but that the pain becomes embedded in our emotional and psychological state. We may begin to identify with the pain, to see it as a part of our identity. It becomes the lens through which we view the world. Our memories of the hurt can define how we relate to others and even how we see ourselves. We may start to believe that we are simply victims of circumstance, unable to escape the emotional fallout of the pain that was inflicted upon us. But in reality, this attachment to the past only holds us back. It keeps us trapped in a cycle of suffering and prevents us from living fully in the present moment. To release this grip of the past, we must first recognize that the act of holding on to pain is a choice, even though it may seem unconscious or automatic. The mind, in its desire to make sense of everything often, holds on to memories of pain in an effort to protect us from experiencing the same hurt again. We replay the pain over and over, hoping that by understanding it, we can somehow gain control over it. But this is a false sense of control. The more we focus on the pain, the more we feed it. We keep the emotional wound open by constantly revisiting it, dissecting it, and trying to make sense of it in ways that do not bring healing. In truth, the more we ruminate on the pain, the more power we give it over us. The past becomes a shadow that looms over us, preventing us from fully experiencing the present. This is why letting go of pain is not a matter of forgetting or suppressing the hurt, but of consciously choosing to release its emotional hold. When we let go, we stop giving the past the power to define us. We stop allowing it to shape our perceptions of ourselves and the world around us. We take back our power, and in doing so, we allow ourselves to be free. One of the greatest obstacles to letting go of the past is our attachment to the story of what happened. The mind wants to make sense of everything, to create a narrative that explains why we were hurt, why we were wronged, and who was at fault. This narrative often becomes a source of identity for us. We see ourselves as the victim, and this identity becomes reinforced every time we retell the story, every time we revisit the memory. We may even find comfort in the story, as it gives us a sense of clarity and structure in a world that can often feel chaotic. But this attachment to the narrative is what keeps us stuck in the past. We are not defined by the story of what happened to us. We are defined by how we choose to move forward in our life. Letting go of the past, therefore, requires us to release the emotional attachment we have to the narrative of our hurt. It requires us to stop seeing ourselves as victims of a particular event or person, and to start seeing ourselves as survivors who are capable of healing. When we release the grip of the past, we stop defining ourselves by the hurt we experienced, and we begin to see ourselves as whole, regardless of what has happened to us. The pain may still exist in our memories, but it no longer has the same power over us. It becomes a part of our past, but not a defining aspect of who we are. Forgiveness plays a crucial role in letting go of the past. Many people believe that forgiveness is about absolving the person who hurt us, giving them permission to continue their actions without consequence. But true forgiveness is not about letting someone off the hook. It is about releasing ourselves from the emotional burden of holding on to resentment and anger. When we refuse to forgive, we keep the person who hurt us in our anger and resentment, keep us tied to the past, preventing us from moving forward and healing. Forgiveness then is not about the other person, it is about us. It is about making the conscious choice to free ourselves from the emotional chains of the past. Forgiveness allows us to release the grip of the past and stop letting the actions of others define how we feel in the present. It allows us to reclaim our power and create space for healing. But forgiveness is not always easy. It is a process that takes time and patience. It requires us to confront our own feelings of hurt and betrayal, to feel the pain fully, and then to make the decision to let it go. Forgiveness is a gift we give to ourselves, not the person who wronged us. Another important aspect of letting go of the past is the realization that holding on to pain is a form of self-punishment. When we hold on to the hurt, we are essentially saying that we do not deserve to be free from it. We continue to punish ourselves for something that has already happened, something that is beyond our control. By doing so, we deprive ourselves of the opportunity to heal. Letting go is an act of self-compassion. It is about recognizing that we deserve peace, that we deserve to move forward, and that we do not have to be bound by the past. We are worthy of healing, and the first step toward healing is choosing to release the pain. Letting go also requires us to be willing to face the fear of moving on. Often we hold on to the pain because we are afraid of what might happen if we let go. We fear that if we let go of the hurt, we will somehow lose a part of ourselves or forget the lessons we learned from the experience. But in reality, letting go of the pain does not mean forgetting the lessons. It means learning to integrate those lessons into our lives in a healthier way. We hold on to the hurt, we are unable to see the growth and wisdom that comes from the experience. We are too focused on the pain to recognize the strength that has emerged from it. Letting go is about embracing the lessons without being weighed down by the emotional baggage. Letting go is also about trust. It requires us to trust that by releasing the pain, we are creating space for new experiences, for new growth, and for new relationships. When we hold on to the past, we block the possibility of newness entering our lives. We are stuck in a cycle of repetition, revisiting the same old pain over and over again. Letting go allows us to open ourselves to the present moment and to trust that the future holds something better, something more aligned with our true self. It requires faith that by releasing what no longer serves us, we make room for the good things that are yet to come. The process of letting go is not immediate, nor is it linear. It takes time, and there may be setbacks along the way. We may find ourselves revisiting the past, experiencing the same emotions over and over. But with each moment we choose to let go, we make progress. It is important to remember that letting go is not a single event, but an ongoing process. Each step we take toward releasing the past is a step toward healing, a step toward reclaiming our power, and a step toward living a more fulfilling life. Every encounter with emotional pain carries within it the seed of personal growth and transformation. We often see ourselves as victims of the harm inflicted upon us, as if the suffering was something that simply happened to us from an external source. But what if, instead of remaining trapped in the role of the victim, we choose to see the pain as an opportunity? What if we could recognize that through the very suffering we endure, we can discover new parts of ourselves, achieve greater wisdom, and evolve into a more complete version of who we are meant to be? The journey of self-discovery and growth that stems from emotional pain is not one of avoidance or suppression, but rather one of embracing the wound as a catalyst for profound change. The first step in embracing the journey of self-discovery and growth is to acknowledge the discomfort of facing the pain rather than running away from it. In many ways, it is instinctual to avoid pain. We are conditioned to seek pleasure and comfort while avoiding suffering. Yet, the avoidance of pain often leads to stagnation. The pain that we experience as a result of being hurt by someone is not simply an unpleasant emotional state. It is a signal. It is a message from our inner selves, urging us to pay attention, to look inward, and to understand what is happening in the depths of our hearts and minds. If we continually push away our pain, we deny ourselves the opportunity to uncover these hidden parts of ourselves. Healing requires us to face our pain, not to avoid it or deny its existence. Pain, as uncomfortable as it is, offers us the opportunity to learn about our desires, our fears, our limits, and our potential. When we allow ourselves to feel the full impact of emotional hurt without rushing to numb the pain or distract ourselves, we begin the process of self-awareness. The awareness that comes from confronting pain opens doors to understanding ourselves in ways that we might never have anticipated. Pain brings to light things that we may have buried deep within our unconscious minds, old wounds, unhealed traumas, and emotional patterns that have been with us for years, often without our conscious realization. These hidden aspects of ourselves are part of what Carl Jung referred to as the shadow. The shadow consists of parts of our psyche that we reject or deny, usually because they are seen as socially unacceptable or unpleasant. Yet, these parts of ourselves are integral to who we are. They carry with them valuable lessons and insights that, when integrated, can lead to growth and personal evolution. Embracing the journey of self-discovery involves recognizing that pain is often a reflection of these repressed aspects of ourselves. When someone hurts us, we may feel betrayed, abandoned, or unworthy, but these feelings are not simply a reflection of the actions of others. They are often reflections of deeper feelings that we have not yet fully understood or processed. For instance, if we feel betrayed by someone close to us, it may trigger feelings of abandonment that have their roots in earlier life experiences, such as childhood neglect or a past relationship that ended in a similar way. These feelings may be stored deep within us, and the betrayal we experience in the present serves as a mirror to bring those old wounds to the surface. Confronting this pain allows us to understand the ways in which we have been affected by these past experiences and offers us the chance to heal them. Through the process of self-discovery, we gain greater insight into our emotional triggers and patterns. We begin to see how we respond to certain situations, and we start to understand why we react in particular ways. For example, if we find ourselves constantly feeling disappointed in others, it may be a sign that we have unfulfilled expectations or a deep need for validation that has been unmet in the past. Instead of blaming others for letting us down, we can turn inward and ask ourselves what it is within us that feels unfulfilled and why we continue to seek validation from outside sources. This process of introspection allows us to shift from a mindset of blame to one of responsibility. Instead of seeing ourselves as victims of external circumstances, we start to recognize that we have the power to change our own responses and perceptions. The next step in the journey of growth is to accept the pain as part of the process of transformation. Healing from emotional hurt is not a simple or linear process. It is complex and multifaceted. There are moments when we may feel as if we are making progress, only to find ourselves revisiting the same feelings of hurt, sadness, or anger. This can be frustrating and disheartening. But it is important to recognize that the path to healing is not always straightforward. Just as a wound requires time to heal physically, emotional wounds require time and care to mend. However, through each phase of healing, we grow stronger. Each time we revisit the pain, we are given the opportunity to see it from a new perspective, to integrate new insights, and to release it more fully. The process of transformation is not simply about healing from the pain. It is about what we become in the process of healing. When we face our emotional pain and begin to make sense of it, we open ourselves to new possibilities. We become more resilient, more compassionate, and more attuned to our inner selves. The process of healing allows us to shed old patterns of thinking and behavior that may have been holding us back. For instance, someone who has been hurt by a close friend or partner may have developed a deep fear of abandonment. This fear may have caused them to build emotional walls or avoid intimacy in future relationships. However, through the process of facing their pain, they may come to realize that their fear of abandonment is not the result of what the other person did, but a fear rooted in their own past experiences. By confronting this fear and working through it, they can release the grip it has on them and move forward in a healthier, more open way. This process of transformation can be liberating. As we face and integrate our pain, we begin to shed the weight of our past emotional wounds. We let go of the stories and narratives that have defined us as victims of circumstance. Instead, we embrace the truth that we have the power to create new narratives for ourselves. We can choose how we respond to the world, how we interpret events, and how we define our identity. The emotional pain that once seemed like an insurmountable obstacle becomes the foundation for a new beginning. We learn that we are not defined by the hurt we have experienced, but by how we choose to heal from it and grow through it. The next step in this process is understanding that the journey of self-discovery and growth does not happen in isolation. As we work through our emotional pain, we become more aware of our connections with others. We realize that we are not alone in our suffering and that others too have experienced pain and hardship. This realization can open the door to deeper empathy and compassion. Rather than seeing others as perpetrators of harm, we begin to understand that they too are on their own journeys of growth and healing. This understanding can shift our perspective and allow us to forgive not just for the sake of the other person, but for our own peace of mind. Forgiveness does not mean condoning harmful behavior. Rather, it means releasing ourselves from the grip of anger and resentment, which only perpetuate our own suffering. Through forgiveness, we allow ourselves to move forward, to let go of the emotional burdens that keep us tied to the past. Finally, embracing the journey of self-discovery and growth means understanding that healing is an ongoing process. As we move through life, we will encounter new challenges, new wounds, and new opportunities for growth. Each experience, whether painful or joyful, contributes to an evolution. Healing is not a destination, but a journey that continues as long as we remain open to learning, to growing, and to becoming the fullest expression of who we are. The pain we experience along the way is not something to fear or avoid, but something to embrace as a teacher. It is through our suffering that we often discover our greatest strengths, our deepest wisdom, and our most profound capacity for love and compassion. The emotional pain we experience when someone hurts us is not something to be feared or resisted. It is instead a powerful opportunity for self-discovery and growth. When we face our pain, understand its deeper meanings, and allow it to transform us, we emerge stronger, wiser, and more whole. Through this process, we are not only healing from the past, but also creating a new future, one that is built on self-awareness, resilience, and the knowledge that we have the power to transform our own lives. Every experience, no matter how painful, is an opportunity for growth. And it is through this growth that we become the fullest, most authentic version of ourselves. In conclusion, the journey of healing from emotional hurt is not an easy one, but it is undeniably one of the most transformative paths we can walk. To forget someone who has hurt us requires much more than merely moving on from the experience. It demands introspection, self-compassion, and the courage to let go of the pain that binds us to the past. It involves embracing our own vulnerability, acknowledging the lessons embedded in the pain, and understanding that our suffering can be the very catalyst for profound personal growth. As we move forward, we must remember that healing is not linear, and letting go is not a single act but a continuous process. It requires us to release our attachment to the past, confront our emotional wounds, and ultimately forgive, not for the sake of the one who wronged us, but for our own liberation. Through this process, we reclaim our power and create the space for new beginnings, new relationships, and a renewed sense of self. By facing the pain, allowing it to transform us, and embracing the growth that comes with it, we no longer see ourselves as victims of our circumstances, but as resilient individuals capable of overcoming adversity. It is in this space of self-awareness and inner strength that we discover our true potential, one not defined by past hurts, but by the wisdom and growth that arise from those very experiences. So as we move through the pain, we must trust that each step brings us closer to a deeper understanding of ourselves, to a life more aligned with who we truly are, and to the peace we deserve. The act of letting go becomes not only a release, but a gift, one that opens the door to the fullest, most authentic version of ourselves.